Thank you so much for being with us today. Again, welcome. We are thrilled that you're here on this early May, when colleges and campuses are busy. And a big thanks to Lynn Wahl from UNC Charlotte, who's going to join us today. But today we're talking about data-driven course design and what that means to be good stewards of data when we are designing, reviewing, and potentially updating our courses. We do have the chat going, so please feel free to drop your questions into the chat. We are happy to weave those into the presentation, and if we don't get to you, we will certainly follow up. Also, everyone who is attending today will also get the recording as a follow-up. So again, thank you so much for being here. I am Amy Price, and I'm your IntelliBoard host today, but the real star of the show is Lynn Wahl at University of North Carolina at Charlotte. And Lynn, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, I'm really happy to be here. Be focusing really specifically today on how UNC Charlotte is using IntelliBoard to drive our course design decisions on our digital learning production team. So excited to get into that.
And so today, as an overview, if you've been with us over the course of the spring, we've been delighted to really share the practical application and innovation of our clients across the United States and beyond. And so today we're looking at things, best practices, replicable projects that you can leverage, and the teasers that Lynn's so generously going to share us are intentional course design using data, what those favorite data points are, data as a conversation starter with faculty, which I'm sure many of you know is a nuanced conversation, and then data for program level outcomes and support. And then I just want to say, every time I have a conversation with Lynn, it is fun and engaging, and I learned something new. So again, Lynn, thank you for being here with us today. For those of you who don't know what IntelliBoard is, let me make this just for a second. We are a learning analytics platform that really seeks to take your learning data and turn it into action. So we work with your existing LMS, Canvas, Brightspace, Moodle, Blackboard, sometimes the SIS system, to surface the critical in-term insights and drive action. What this means in real life is no one likes a surprise. The student information system is the system of truth, the system of record for the majority of our campuses. The LMS is living, breathing, dynamic. It's changing, it's evolving. And there's so much rich data in that. And it can sometimes accidentally get stuck in there and not in the right hands of the right people to be able to have the awareness to make a change in term before that final grade or that final, DFW, right? Or that final PLO gets stored in its system of truth. And more importantly, we are built for education. So the tool seeks to take all of that LMS data and get the right data into the hands of different offices. So instructional designers are one office, academic leadership can be another office, academic advisors can be another opportunity, and the reports and dashboards given to an instructional designer and an academic advisor are different. The data that they'll see is also different, but the idea is that the tool provides the right access to meaningful data to make powerful change. And this is where we sit and how we do it. So this is a loop that we use with learner and monitoring learners on the left-hand side and monitoring course and program compliance on the right side. And these two work together. One feeds into the other. But today, we're going to more shift on the program and course compliance, the teaching and learning, instructional design, recognizing that yes, there's absolutely a place for at-risk students and monitoring and supporting and learning and seeing where they are. And those same learners are the ones that are in our courses. We're providing that content to them, and we have a responsibility of also making sure that we are efficient with monitoring the feedback, the impact of those courses, that those courses are aligned to our outcomes for accreditation, and that the course quality that the students are receiving is also supporting their retention, and we start the loop all over again. So we'll be camping on the right-hand side today up at the course level, and we look forward to the conversation. So Lynn, will you share a little bit about the University of North Carolina at Charlotte for us?
Yeah, so UNC Charlotte is a really growing presence in the state of North Carolina. So we have recently reached an enrollment record of 32,000 students. We have surpassed all of our system schools in enrollment except for NC State. And so that has led to a lot of growth on campus. We are building like crazy, but not just physical infrastructure either. We are also really intentionally growing our online programming. And so I work within a larger unit. Our Center for Teaching and Learning sits in our Digital and Professional Learning unit, which is in academic affairs. And our product portfolio of our larger unit is quite large. We cover all of our online programming. And then we also do our professional development. You might know it as continuing education. We manage summer term, which is separate from our academic affairs semesters. And we also do workforce education, and we do youth camps, and there's some other stuff. So our larger parent unit is quite large. Our footprint is large. And so we are tasked as a mission to increase online student enrollment and improve and ensure good student experience in our online programming. And so that's sort of a situating where my role within our Center for Teaching and Learning, I'm the Director of Digital Learning Production. And so my team, I have about 13 team members split between instructional designers and media specialists. And we touch almost all of our formal online courses for design and development and media development and some program management tasks. And so we are number 4 in the nation for online bachelor's degrees, and have consistently ranked with that ranking over the past couple of years. And so IntelliBoard is a very strategic tool for us to sort of move to the next level of intentionality and how we are managing our students' experiences. So we, our goal in our CTL, we have a students first framework that drives all of our work. And that framework centers on alignment and accessibility, as well as relevance and engagement. And in order to actually assess how effective we are at those elements, we have to be able to see into our Canvas courses. And so we can survey faculty, we can survey students. But as Amy mentioned previously, there is an enormous amount of data available, really rich living data available in Canvas that was extremely manual to extract. And so our CTL very strategically sought out a data analytics tool in IntelliBoard, and we are starting to implement it across all of our different areas in the CTL. And so we have 2 teams. We have Teaching and Learning Innovation team that interfaces with faculty on workshops and training around Canvas and is our AI engine for campus. And then my Digital Learning Production team focuses on the design, development, and management of our Charlotte online programs.
Perfect. So multiple hats.
Yep.
No rest for the weary, busy. I wanted just to go back to, for those who are joining us today who may not have IntelliBoard, right? What did pulling that data look like before IntelliBoard, that manual process? What would you, like, equal opportunity for the webinar? What, right? Like, even if you don't have IntelliBoard can certainly make it easier, but what did that look like before? And what data points were you are you most interested in looking at conversation starters for course design?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's something that I tell people all the time. What is IntelliBoard? And so, well, it makes everything easier. So every single time that I have tried to, prior to IntelliBoard, that I've tried to launch a really sort of data intensive look at how students are engaging with the courses that we have designed and built. Every time I tried to use Canvas analytics inside of a course, if I tried to use new analytics inside of the admin, what I encountered was every single view in Canvas that you can see for data, when you need it to be granular, it's broad. And when you need it to be broad, it's granular. I don't understand what the opposite game is. I don't understand why we couldn't see the big picture when we needed it. And so it was candidly driving us insane. And we gave up, right? We're like, okay, this isn't helpful. And so in the past, what I have done is I've enabled app scripts through Ruby to mine discussion board participation data, which isn't reported in any tables in a clean fashion. I have exported hundreds of Excel sheets and manually formatted those using UTC time codes to assess how much time students were spending individually on pages in an aggregated fashion for the whole course, not just one student looking at a page for the whole course. So adding up total amount of time spent on a page. And so while I am aware that a lot of this information is available in Canvas courses, we have developed over the last 6 years over 500 courses that I am trying to take a look at systematically for the impact that our course design is having on students. And I can't click on 500 different courses to find this information. And so I needed an aggregate. I needed something that helped to aggregate that information into a bigger picture scale so that we could make decisions about what we did and we didn't do in course design. And so I think that is the biggest change that IntelliBoard has sort of wrought on our team, is that we can see the big picture when we need it, and we can see the micro details that we need as well, all within the same system, all within 3 clicks of a button.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And let's just jump. I'm going to jump to the next slide, and we can jump into some of the projects that you're working on, and we'll continue to look at those. So one of the first things that you said are students engaging in the way that we expect them to? Talk us through this report and how y'all are using it, because it aligns with that conversation of aggregating the time spent by student by activity.
Yeah, this was a funny one actually, because my team, for 9 years, we've been working. We develop templates. We push best practices in our design process with faculty. All of my instructional designers have master's degrees in instructional design. They have lived experience. They've taken online courses, and so we have we thought we had a really good understanding of what students need, what they need to be successful, what good design looks like. And yes, our course design looks amazing. It's clean, it's easy to navigate, there's no questions on what you're supposed to be doing and when. But there was still a whole nother piece of it, right? You can design the most beautiful thing, but if people just don't use it the way that it's intended, then it doesn't matter how beautiful it is. Now it's a statue or a piece of decoration instead of what it should be. And so if people can't figure out that it's a chair, they're not going to sit in it. It doesn't matter how pretty it is. So what we found when we utilized this particular report and we started looking at the courses we designed is we made the realization that even though we made sure that all of the content that students need in order to be successful in their assessments was clearly labeled, it was clearly sequenced in the LMS, it was referenced in a learning guide, read this and then do this. What we found when we actually looked at the data is that students weren't doing that. They weren't looking at the content pages. They were not reading the preface instructions that gave them guidance on how to be successful in the assignment. I'll give you all a guess as to what students were doing. Like, can anybody just pop in the chat and say, when a student is assigned an assignment, what's the first thing they click on? Is it the content page that gives them all the instructions? Yeah, they go right to the assignment. And so we were pretty amused. I mean, I was amused at myself. I'm not mad at my IDs, but the IDs were like, but it's right there and it's beautiful. And so then we started thinking about how humans engage and interact. And if you have something to do, you're going to go right to do it, right? Not every student, but what we found was that the majority of our students in some classes were completely skipping the content pages. And so what we did is we have moved to a model where the content page is still there because it needs to be there, but we're taking that content and we are also putting it in the actual assignment box. So if the students do just click on the assignment, everything that they need to be successful is also there, rather than just the submission instructions. Now the whole piece of it is there. And if there's extra information that's available on the learning guide, then it's referenced in the assignment box. Hey, don't forget, there's 3 articles that are linked in our learning guide or in this module that you also need to look. But again, we just link it on the assignment box. And so that was an interesting moment where we had to like recognize that our instructional design expertise actually created a little bit of a blind spot for us. And then faculty were frustrated as well. Students aren't doing the assignment correctly. Well, the data showed us why, because students weren't reading how to do the assignment correctly.
I love that. And it's also the hidden, we talk about the hidden curriculum for students so much too, right? Like that they are navigating this new place and they're navigating, but it's also the hidden curriculum for us and reminding that we're all humans and we're going to be the most efficient that we can. And so this report that we're looking at, it's called course content utilization. We're looking at one course in this screenshot and we've blurred some stuff out. We've blurred the course name out, but what you can do is look at one course or multiple courses, one activity or multiple activities, but this is going to be the line item of 1 line per student per activity type. And it'll give you the time spent and the submission status of that particular activity to then be able to do what y'all saw of like page 0, file 0, quiz sometime. I would be super interested to know like once we get into this further, the difference between the time spent on the quiz with the content and the time spent on the quiz with the content added to see, the change in student behavior there.
Yeah, definitely a next step for us as we change our design practices to kind of match that. And this is cool too, because as I mentioned before, like this is showing light item for students. And so it's really helpful if you have a student who is like, now we're going more to the alert side, but if you have a student who is really struggling, it's worth a check to see first if they've actually accessed any of the support materials. But there is also a dashboard that doesn't show you the line item students. It just shows you the roll up for all of this too. So you don't have to get down to the student level if you don't want to. If you need that higher level, you can just look at it. And that's the magic of IntelliBoard is there's not one way or the other. You can go at any angle you want. And so yeah, that's what we have used this one for. It's very exciting for us.
No, that's awesome. And just to place make for some of our other clients, you're exactly right that this is a really good report for like the audit of submissions too, or a student hasn't been accessing. So again, like the idea of these same reports can be leveraged by those different people across campus, leveraging for them for different things, but we're all empowered with the same kind of structural understanding of the data and what it's used for. We go on to the next one. How are students performing in the courses? So this is a little different. This is 1 line per course per student. And I'll let you talk through this one.
Yeah. Yeah. So while the dashboard report says learner course progress monitoring, we as instructional designers are often looking at previous courses that have been delivered by our faculty for like the historical experience of students. And one of the things that we discovered is we were looking at a course. I think this is actually what the screenshot is from. And we noticed a really poor grade distribution. And I mean, everybody's getting almost an A+. And so, I was looking at that and I was like, okay, so on the surface, that looks like a successful course. But then I started to look deeper and I was like, wait a second. And so I'm looking through the students and then with that previous dashboard, I started looking at how the students were interacting with the courses. And it was a minimal amount of time spent. I'm talking like 5 seconds per discussion board and 1 minute per whatever. And it was very clear, just based off of this overall snapshot from the course. And yeah, I know I could look at the Canvas gradebook for that, but it doesn't have all of the other information here. The number of page views, the time spent, it's just all right here. And basically, what we discovered on this is that even the particular individual who looked at 1,700 pages and spent, but they only spent an hour and 30 minutes total in the course. I guess I'll quiz you all again. What does this really high grade and no access of the content indicate? See if anybody gets it. Yep. Elizabeth is like winning this impromptu bingo game. Yes. So what
Gold
we
stars.
yeah, so what we did is we actually went in, and IntelliBoard very helpfully links the assignments and the courses right there. So you just click the link, and as long as you're, signed into your account, it opens up that page. And so we were looking at the discussion boards, and it was clear that it was just 100% AI. So we actually use this information on the back end, not for early alerts for students or helping students to do better, but to look and see if the class was actually authentically designed, and to check the integrity of the assessments, not in a big brother policing way, but we have an academic rigor, we have a responsibility to our accreditors to make sure that students are learning the content that they should be. And in this particular case, the assignments were not AI proofed well enough, and the data showed it really quickly and really easily for us that it wasn't working as intended. And so we did a redesign of this, and now can very easily monitor, time, effort, result, with just this simple dashboard. So we've got some views set up to monitor these classes to see if the changes we've made are making a difference.
That's awesome. And you hit on something that I think is the elephant in the room for all of us who work with data. And academic freedom is real. And yet course design, as you said, has a significant impact on student engagement, learning, but also downstream accreditation. How do you balance the nuance of that with faculty, with academic leadership? Like, how are we talking about this in a way? We say all the time, like, the data is never meant to be punitive. It's always meant to be illuminative. But what does that look like in real life application and conversation?
So the cool thing is that our particular course development process really encourages the collaborative relationship with faculty. I know not everyone has that. And I would never want to use data as a weapon to come in out of nowhere and say, your course distribution is awful, like blah, blah. We would never do that here. That's not our culture. Instead, we partner. Our faculty are partnering with us willingly. So the way that we start these conversations is we ask the faculty, one, what are your pain points? What are areas of your course that make you uncomfortable or that you have had challenges with in the past? Where do you think your students are struggling? And we hear what they have to say from a sort of it's that gut check, intuitive level. And then we say, would you like to look at the actual data with us to see if some of those predictions or those feelings that you're having are held up in how students are interacting with your content? And every time faculty say, you can do that. And we're like, yeah, now we can. It was a little harder before. It was very manual. And so a lot of times we won't pull the dashboards up in front of them. They get lost in the weeds. Let me just do a dive for you and pull up some things that I think may be of interest around these conversations. And then we sort of deliver that, our findings in the next meeting. And we are moving as a university towards enabling this for full access for our faculty. It will take some training and some launch. But for right now, we have nestled it inside of our collaborative course development process. And that goes a long way towards easing people's concerns about, we're not doing this to tell you that you have done a bad job. We're doing this to point out to you that sometimes we can't anticipate how people utilize things. And so just the same analogy that we gave you before about the, beautifully designed chair that no one can figure out as a chair. And so we try to put it into that perspective.
That's great. And to me, I was a former educator before IntelliBoard, and I taught, and I also am a nerd, and I want to know, like, as an instructor, I think that there's like this, I want to know what my students are doing and not doing. I want to be given the opportunity to know the benchmark, know the expectation, and then shift to that, right? And grow to that. If you don't give me a benchmark, I don't exactly know where I'm going, but to be able to identify and it be in a collaborative way, I would have loved that, as the opportunity to review my gut check of what my students absolutely, they loved it, right? It compared to the reality of they may not love everything that I love about the course. Going on to the third data set, is the course paced correctly? And I think this also aligns, I think the first time you and I talked about this, you shared it was in one of those collaborative sessions, that this is one of the data pieces that you kind of mine out to be able to have that conversation starter.
Yeah, I have to admit that this is my favorite because it resulted in an amazing conversation with the faculty and a complete redesign of their course and their pacing and their structure. So as I was going through, I had to take on an emergency course development. I don't usually do it, so I used it as an opportunity to implement IntelliBoard like as deeply as I could into the process. And so when I was working with a faculty member, we were talking and they were like, I feel like the last part of my course is not well designed. Like I feel like there's not a lot of intentionality in it. And I would really like assistance and your opinion on how we might move everything around and rearrange it. And it is a scientific writing course. And so I was looking through her content, and just from a scroll through her module page, I could tell intuitively that the balance of the course was too front loaded. And that as we got towards the end, where students were really supposed to be wrapping up, writing their drafts and submitting for feedback and peer reviewing with one another and submitting these pieces and getting interaction and the collaborative piece of what writing and good writing looks like, that there just wasn't the opportunity there. And so I went digging through the IntelliBoard dashboards, and I found this one. And I think that there's versions of this in Canvas Analytics inside of the course, but it's not the same. It doesn't look the same. And so I was looking at this one, and I realized right away what the issue was. So down across the bottom, about every hash mark there is like a week of the course. And so we get through midterm, right? And look at that tank in student engagement. So this is how much students are interacting with the course. And that number that they're showing you there is the number of page views from the course. And it's got some slight humps as it goes up, and each of those humps aligns with a submission. But where'd they go, right? Like what the whole front half of the class was sitting and learning and listening. And right when they're supposed to be collaborating with the faculty and one another, they just disappeared. And so I showed this graph to the faculty member, and she went, "Oh my gosh, you're right. Like I didn't even realize that it was like such a before and after." And so I would really love to have a revised engagement graph for you, but she's not teaching it until the fall. But I would predict that what we're going to see is something that is a lot more even. We really balanced the workload across. And towards the end, instead of it being an abrupt drop at the end, there's going to be a spike instead, as they actually engage with revising and submitting their drafts and engaging with each other. And so that's what I would want to see, not the class is over basically in week 8 and then everyone just limps to the end. So let's hope that the revision of the course pacing helps to solve this issue. But a picture is worth 1,000 words, and she didn't have to take my word for it. She saw it right here. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And it's also just knowing when midterms are. And, like my brain goes to this is one course. Okay, like what is that midterm dip? What is that re-engagement? One of our clients in Louisiana, this is always one of my favorite stories too. It's one of the risk stories, but it aligns with action over time. They have notifications set up based off of access, continued access to making sure students have a consistent engagement on their end. And they say, hey, like we haven't seen you in this course. Is everything okay? Instead of it being a midterm drop, it was a Mardi Gras drop of students weren't in their courses for Mardi Gras. So it's finding when, are we experiencing this because it's spring break? Are we experiencing this because it's midterm? Is everybody dropping off at midterm? Who's cranking up after midterms, right? Even having just that benchmark awareness for courses at our institution fundamentally shifts how we then have the opportunity to design, but also encourage, monitor academic leadership, having those conversations with our programs and faculty in our divisions to be able just to have the conversation, right? Like how many people in the throes of the semester, do we even have the space to question where the highs and lows of my student engagement are? But when we can see it and it's in front of us, we very much have the opportunity to then not be surprised later.
And this is the course level. And so if you hover over it, it gives you a bigger number, like in the real system. There's another version of this report that does it for every student, and every line is a different color. And if you hover over the line, it tells you which student it is. And so you'll see the average, right? Like as it goes through, but there is a more granular view of this too. I just like, if you all can't tell, like that is the most exciting thing for me on this planet. But for this purpose, I didn't need the details for each student. I needed one line, not 50. But there are 50 lines that you could look at instead.
Indeed. And yes, the approach of, academic leadership, instructional design, top level, like roll it up for me. I need to be able to spot trends. Academic advisor, right? Individual instructor. I need that granular view because I don't want to make that assumption for the student who's sitting in front of me asking for assistance or who I'm trying to intervene with and support and remain and persist on. Speaking of students, let's go to this one because it's real fun too.
Yeah, this is another interesting finding that we had. Um, So when we started building online, one of the things that we tried to stop our faculty from doing is putting due dates on the weekends. And the reason for that is from a technical perspective of a lot of times students can't get help on the weekends if they need assistance. So if they're struggling with a tool, they can't get a hold of the faculty, or they are trying to get help outside of our student help desk hours. So we always try to push faculty to put their due dates during the middle of the week. And this is a little different because we're at end of semester here. And so I just ran this one like last week. And so the behavior is a little bit different now. But when I ran this previously, I made a startling realization. And it was that based off of the data and aggregate data around like all of campus, and IntelliBoard has very helpfully created a bucket for me to separate out my online courses from my face-to-face so that I could see specific online behavior, which is what matters to me. Is basically what I discovered is when we thought students were probably most active in the LMS wasn't true at all. During the regular semester, I'm sorry I don't have the graph for you because you'd see it, but during the regular semester, the students are rarely in the LMS on the weekends. It's only when we start to get towards the end of the semester that you start seeing more activity on the Saturdays and Sundays, where you see that light blue. But even this graph is showing you, so the density of the blue is how much activity is happening in Canvas. And so even here, you can see, I don't know what happened on Tuesday. I think there was no class that day or something. I don't know. Everyone decided. That doesn't mean that nobody accessed it. It just means that it was a very light day. But you can see the lighter blue on Sunday. It's a darker blue on Saturday, and Friday, but look at this is when students are actually in Canvas: Wednesday, Thursday, and Monday morning. And so what that enabled us to do is to have a very clear conversation to faculty about student behavior and when they're going to see your announcements. If you post an announcement on Monday afternoon, there's a large chance that no students are going to see it until Friday or Thursday afternoon, right? And so when you're looking at, just being very intentional in your design and working around learner behavior, it's this is an insight that is really important, and it provides. This is something that no faculty can really kind of piece together themselves unless they went and looked at the submission dates and access dates of everything that they have in their class to see. You could also poll students. I guess you just ask them. But we ask our students so much already. Why not just look at it in the chart? So we have tried to push our faculty to move their due dates to the middle of the week, Wednesday and Thursday, to allow assignments to be completed on the weekends for our working adult learners that need that time, but to also recognize that people prefer not to do that if they can. It's available, but let's not make a due date on Saturday night, everyone. Yeah, if they want to work on the weekend, they can do it a week ahead and they can turn their assignment in on Friday.
Absolutely. This has also been leveraged by other clients to advocate for the help desk hours, right?
Mhm.
Like I don't want to be working at 9 o'clock on a Wednesday, but that's where students are. And so how do we advocate for resource alignment to meeting our students where they're at? Not only with something like a submission and a due date, which absolutely, but then also how are we living, breathing, shifting, and leveraging the data to advocate for the resources to support students where they are too. So what does this all mean? So the impact of the data. I know that we've, done this throughout, but just a summary of what does this data mean for your center and the instructional designers, but then also the feedback from the instructors who you've had a chance to work with to illuminate their courses.
Yeah, the analogy that I always think of here is right. Early alerts and identifying students who need help when they need it is super important. That's going to be true for all time. And so, but when we're looking at it from our perspective of like where my sort of focus is on design and development of learning, we like to think of it as like you were always going to need the life preserver on a boat, and even the best designed ships can sink, right? Because of uncontrollable environmental things. It's the same thing for students. Even the best students, the most well-intentioned students can encounter issues. So you still need the life preserver. But where I'm at and where I live and where my team lives is like, well, you know what? We also need to make sure that we have a really well-designed boat. And so we're focusing on the design and delivery and development of the boat, integrating data insights into that in really actionable ways. And so for us, what this does is it gives us that insight into student experience and engagement and how they're engaging with our materials that we would not be able to have otherwise. And so we're not just we're not just going off of our gut and what the industry says best practices. We're actually using these live insights to drive our course development in order to improve student experience, to hopefully prevent the need for a life preserver for at least a percentage of those students later. Students will always need that life preserver. For instructors, what this does is it enables them to have a more metacognitive approach to their course design and their teaching, where they can actually see the results of their design decisions in a really sort of aggregated way. They can look back. This is really exciting. We haven't done it yet, but we're really wanting to do some deep dives with the faculty in their data analytics before course design and after course design, so that we can help to really solidify for them what changed. And that way they can take those things that work and they can apply it in their other courses as well that they might not get to work with us on. And so our next iteration and phase is to start releasing this to instructors. And we do have one pilot group that is newly online that we're probably going to release it to their access here in the next couple of weeks, as well as some other groups that are using it for an even higher level rollout, which is program outcomes. And so that's looking at not just overall course student experience, but how are students engaging in the program, like, which is a group of courses and courses that are outside their college, even their gen eds and their progression courses. And so that information is with increased student enrollment, it's so difficult to see this information in a one-by-one level. And so the impact of this, of having these larger snapshots and the ability to automate alerts, all the things that IntelliBoard does, it's just absolutely vital for the success. Of course, like I care about our online, but it extends across our face-to-face courses as well.
Thank you. So how it's done, let's talk about this for just a second, and then we'll talk about what's next for Charlotte and a few housekeeping things at the end. But what we're doing is we are taking the data that comes in from the LMS, and we are updating that typically every 4 hours based off of what the LMS will allow us to pull in. And sometimes we can bring in SIS data, either through an API connection or through Inform to identify additional indicators. So Lynn has the ability to flag an online course inside Canvas. That's not always inside Canvas, right? A mini mester may not always be inside Canvas, or a first-time full-time student may not always be in Canvas, but you could pull in those additional indicators too. We then take those dashboards and we decide what needs to go to what humans based off of FERPA, based off of role. And then we have the capacity to then deploy these different dashboards to different groups of people. So instructors may have one view with just their courses. Instructional designers may have different reports with the courses that they are able to oversee in a program or a specific course even. Academic leadership can have those roll-up aggregate views of a different dashboard, but only the in-term data because they're worried about enrollments and revenue and at-risk students per dollar. But the whole goal is that that data is centered, and then that data is visualized in a way that you don't have to hunt and peck, but also that we're making strategic decisions of how to showcase that data to make it easy to ingest. I am not a data scientist, but I know that data is important, and I know that data needs to inform the decisions that I'm making for both learners and courses. So what's next at Charlotte? Lynn, I'll let you talk a little bit about this. I know you highlighted some, but I'll let you share a little more.
Yeah, so I added to all of my team goals that they were going to start formally implementing IntelliBoard analytics into their course design and development process, meeting with them, training with them, going through our dashboards and exploring what use does this have in course design, after, what does it have, use does it have before in prepping for your consultations with faculty, what use does it have during. And so we are formalizing that approach and how we're actually implementing it as a team. And I already mentioned a little bit, instructor access pilot, we're going to start loosening the reins on that. And by spring 2027, I hope to have the LTI enabled so that every faculty on campus can click IntelliBoard in their Canvas menu and see contextualized reports for that class there. That will be amazing. And again, we're going to need to do a little bit of level setting with our faculty on this is what it is and this is what it's for. And no, we're not using it to big brother anything. And then, our partnership with one of our colleges, looking at program level outcomes reporting, they are doing everything so manually out of so many different systems. Amy is working with them really closely to try to help them automate some of that to make that reporting easier. And I do have to tell you all, like, nothing highlights how much of a mess your data is until you get a tool like this. And then you look and say, oh, wow, we probably should have named that something different 10 years ago. But IntelliBoard has been a great partner with us to work through all those data snarls. And I know more about how our data is entered into our student information system than I ever wanted to know as a result of all of this. And then one thing that I'm also excited about, and this is where we can actually leverage some of IntelliBoard's really powerful, like live early alerts and connections to advisors and faculty behavior as well, is our continuing education courses. And so what we have there is we have subject matter experts that we contract as instructors. And so they're outside of our ecosystem and they're not trained faculty. They are industry experts that work in finance or cybersecurity or something. And so a lot of times our program managers are chasing after them saying, you need to provide feedback on week 2's assignment. And they're going into Canvas and they're looking and they're seeing, and there are very specific dashboards that I can just provide to those program managers and alert systems and everything to automate that. And because we are growing that area, we need that automation. And so I'm really excited to be able to provide them with such a useful tool that all in all is super easy to set up. Like it really is easy to deploy. And so that's kind of where we're at, and we're really excited about it.
Thank you. And I would be remiss if I just didn't highlight some of the things that you included in that just as best practices with data management, change management. We have the opportunity to work with a lot of clients, and I see some of you in the attendees list. But the ability of like tying the data to a report to a goal, right? Like what is the expectation of utilizing this data, right? It's one thing to have data. Great. We all know it's important, but like the intentional tie back to this is our goal. This is our KPI. This is what we're trying to achieve together. And this is the report, the data, the impact that we need, like how to measure that. It's like SMART goals, right? Like we all know this. It's just it's sometimes really hard to do it. So I think that intentionality of tying that is so important. The other thing that I loved that you mentioned, and I would be remiss to say, just to place make, like this is all at y'all's speed. It's a powerful tool, but you can pilot. You can set it up with a team of instructional designers first and not touch the academic advisors or academic leadership or athletes, right? It's completely configurable to your deploy and needs, right? So when we do work with instructors, start with a small group of academic advisors, and then breach it out further as you get feedback, as you're implemented with those case studies. So again, just Lynn, as always, gold stars and fantastic, and love working with you and excited to continue to support the projects. Thank you for being here. Our next webinar shifts back to the student enrollments, kind of the continuing education, dual enrollment, ever growing, impacting our enrollment streams, impacting our retention, impacting the type of student we're serving, right? A younger student, and what that means for not only monitoring their support, but also the courses that they're taking. Maybe they've never taken an online course before. What do we need to be aware of? So that is June 4th. We would love to have you. And we will be reviewing the learner success dashboard, which is more of the at-risk student, how Lynn's using it to monitor those courses that maybe don't have the course distribution that you need, but also empowering academic advisors with the real-time data of a student's current grade. I remember waiting for those early alerts and getting the report of the early alerts and being like curious, is this because I have all the early alerts of the students, or 2 faculty have submitted them. So being able to leverage this data in a way to be the life preserver of making sure that we have that safety net underneath student success too, especially with a student population. And yes, Lynn, I appreciate your comment. The dual enrollment, even in North Carolina, is multi-million-dollar revenue stream for North Carolina institutions, and also helping those students. So come join us. It's June 4th. You can also register at IntelliBoard.net/events. It's already posted there. You can go for that. And if you have any questions, please, we'd love to brainstorm. This is why we do what we do. It's important and it's exciting, and we appreciate all that all educators are doing, especially all year long and especially in May. And Lynn, thank you so very much for your time, your examples, your insights. It is greatly, greatly appreciated. So thank you all for being with us today.
Thank you, everyone. And we're happy here at Charlotte. We've already had a few conversations. We're also happy to connect. So you can connect through Amy if you would like to, talk with us a little bit more. We're happy to tell you about how we're using this here and how we're rolling it out and how we rolled it out too. So if you want to know more about that, just let Amy know and she'll connect us.
Absolutely, Lynn, you're so generous. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day, everybody, and we'll talk soon.